Hello, welcome once again to my channel. My name is Evans, a full stack software developer. Now, before we proceed to today's lectures, I'm just going to show you a few things about my channel. Now, when you go to my channel, you see that there is a playlist section, and there are currently two playlists. In this one, we're building a web application that has the functionalities of Uber, Airbnb, and Booking.com. So on our platform, vendors can register their hotel rooms. Individuals can also register their rooms just the way it's done on Airbnb. And then people can create accounts on the platform and then book for rooms from a hotel or maybe from an individual. And then drivers can also register on our platform, and then users can also book for ride just the way it's done on Uber. So this is gonna be a full stack web application. We'll be using Python. We are using Python and Django for the backend. We're using Postgres for the database, but I'm also going to show you how to integrate it with MySQL and SQLite as well. Then for the front end, we are using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, both vanilla JS and jQuery. And then we are also using a CSS library called Bootstrap to build our front end. So we already have about 9 videos in this tutorial series. If you're a beginner, then you should start from the first video so you can understand what we're doing. The hosting is gonna be on Azure and AWS, but I will also show you how to host on Python Anywhere and maybe DigitalOcean as well. Now, the second playlist is we're building an employee record management web application. And for this application, we're still using Python and Django for the backend. We'll use Postgres for the database. And then for the front end, we'll be using React.js. So the difference is we are using React with this. Now, the essence of this employee record management web application is to introduce you to this technology stack so that after we finish building it, we'll now move over and build a learning management platform, an e-learning system that has the functionalities of maybe Coursera and or Udemy. So teachers can upload their videos, create accounts, and then students can log into the application, buy courses, get certification, follow up with the teachers. We'll integrate it with payment engine as well. And this e-learning management system that I'll be teaching you how to build will be the first of its kind on the internet. Currently, there is no course that teaches how to develop programs in both web, desktop, and mobile application with the same source code. So for this tutorial series, I'll be teaching you how to create a dynamic web application, the mobile version of it using React Native, and also the desktop version of it using React Native for the front end, Python and Django for the back end, and then we'll host it on AWS as well and Azure. Then we'll also integrate the desktop application with Electron so that it can function very well. So this is about my channel. Then secondly, if the video resolution is poor on your side, what you can do is simply open the video, come to this settings tab. When you come to this settings tab,
password and username, that is where we have to
scroll down,
import that
you will see
user
quality.
model.
You can change it to 720p, or sometimes you will
Now the
see
next thing you want to
high
do is to
definition.
create the class.
Just click on it, and that's gonna resolve the blurry video for you.
So you say class.
Today
I'm gonna call it.
We're going to be creating our forms.py for our vendor registration. Now, in the last lectures, we are able to create our function that connects our backend to our frontend and capture the user registration details and save in the database. So today, we will create forms.py for our vendor registration app, for our vendor app. Now, so the first thing you want to do is come to your vendor app, right click on it, click on new file and call it forms.py, just the way you did inside this authentication app. So come to vendor, right click, new file, call it forms. So this forms.py will help us display our vendor registration form on the front end for vendors to register. So a vendor can be an individual, or a vendor can also be a business. Maybe hotels can register on our platform and list their room on our platform, or individuals can also list their houses on our platform. Now, the first thing you want to do is make an import. So type from Django import forms. From Django import forms. Now the next thing you want to do is you say from dot models import vendor vendor. I'm just going to go to my models and copy the name of the model. So I go to my models.py, and then this is the model I want to copy. So I'll just copy it and then go back to my forms.py and then paste it here. Because this model is what we want to use on our form. So this form will be rendered on our HTML templates so that vendors can use it for the registration. And that's why you need to import this vendor registration model. Now, the next thing you want to do is to create a class. So you type class. Now this can be anything, so I'll just call mine vendor form. You can call yours whatever you want. Open parenthesis, type forms dot model form. Model, the M is capital, model form. Let me minimize this so my screen will be bigger. Now, the next thing you want to declare is class meta. Now, class meta, M is capital. So class meta is used in this describing the attributes of your form, the attributes and characteristics and features of your form. That is what we will do with this class meta. So now one of the attributes will be declaring the model you want to use. So type model equals this vendor registration. The next thing you want to do is to declare the fields you want to use. So type fields equals, let me go back to my vendor registration model and pick the fields. So the first field I will pick is vendor name. I won't pick user and user profile, and I'm going to explain to you why. So come here, come back to your forms.py, square brackets, open a quote, vendor name, put a comma, then you pick the next field. I'll go back to my model. I'll select vendor type. And then I'll go back to my model. I'll select vendor license. Now, the next attribute I'm going to declare is widgets. Widget equals curly brace. Now, copy this vendor name, put it inside here. I'm just gonna bring this down for readability. Now type forms dot text inputs attributes equals place curly brace in quotes, then type placeholder. And then type a message. Enter your vendor name. Now, these quotes can be single quotes like this, or it can be double quotes. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to explain now. Now, I defined a widget for vendor name, and I am saying it should be a text input, and the placeholder should be enter your vendor name. Let me explain. I will go to my web browser. Let me go to Facebook sign up. Now, first name here, look at this write up. This first name inside of this text box is this placeholder. So whatever you type inside your placeholder will be the message the user will see inside here. So this will enable the user know that this field is meant for first name. But as soon as you start typing, this first name will disappear. Now, this text input is the reason why this first name or this surname is a text box. So, this is how it works. Now, I picked vendor name, vendor type, and vendor license alone because I'll go back to my models. This user, we've already created a form for this user model. Now, this is a one-to-one field and is using this user model. This is capital U, this is just a variable name. And user profile as well is also a one-to-one field which is using the user profile model. Now, let me go to those model. If you go to the authentication app, and this field, this user and this user profile, they are calling from this authentication app. That's why on the top of my import, I said from authentication.models import user profile. Now, I've already explained this in the previous video. So if you've not watched the previous video, I suggest you go back to the previous video so you can understand what we're doing. Now, if I go to my models, you will see the user and you will also see the user profile. Now, this user model is what will help us capture the user's email and their password. While, while the user profile model is what is the field, is a database table that will capture the person's first name, last name, profile picture, date of birth, their full profile. So yeah, that is it. And for this user model and this user profile, we've already created forms for it. If you go to authentication app and forms.py, you will see user registration form, and the model it's using is the user model I just showed you. And we also created another form which is called profile form, and the model it's using is a user profile form. Now, going back to our vendor app and forms. Now, our vendor app, then models.py. So in this form that we are creating for the vendor, we will also use these forms that we created for profile form and user registration. So even if it's a vendor that is registering, the vendor should be able to create their login details, which is coming from the user model. And the vendor should also create their user profile as well. So it's not only individuals, it's not only customers that can use this user register form and this profile form. Because even if you want to register as a hotel, you are still an individual. So you need your login details and you also need your profile. So this is the reason why in my vendor app and my forms.py, I'm not using, if I go to my model, I'm not using user and user profile, because we will simply call up these forms that we've already created while the vendor is registering using this form. So by the time we start writing our function, we'll call up those two forms, including this form. So the vendor will have three forms. One, the user form, which they can use to create their login details. And the second form is going to be the user profile form, which is going to capture their phone number, their email, their first name, their last name. And then the vendor form, which is going to capture their vendor name, maybe ABC Hotels, their vendor type, if they are registering as an individual or if they are registering as an organization. Now, for these widgets, I declare this attribute only for vendor name because this is a text input area. Now, for vendor type and vendor license, they are not going to be, I won't declare them as widgets because they are not text inputs. Vendor type will be a drop down button where a drop down box or a combo box where the vendor can select if they want to register as a vendor, as a company, or as an individual. So it is not a text field like this. Rather, it will be a drop down field like this. And then the vendor license as well, it is not a text field, rather it's going to be a file upload field where you can click and upload your vendor registration details. Maybe you can upload and you can click and upload your hotel registration document or your tenancy agreement to show that you're the rightful tenant of that house that you want to list on our web application. So for them, come to this top side. Let me collapse this so my code will show. Come to this top side and then just press enter. Now what you want to do is I will say vendor license, it doesn't matter the order. Vendor license equals forms dot file field. Forms.file field because we want the vendor to click and go to their computer, maybe their documents or their picture or their images folder, and select a file. That's why we're making it a file field. Now I'll show you something. Type label equals vendor license. Put a comma. Help text equals please upload your vendor license. Then maybe let me break this down to the next line so it doesn't overflow. So help text, please upload your vendor license. I'm just gonna say image only. Image only. Now put a comma. Here I can say widgets equals forms dot file input. Now let me do for vendor type as well. Then I explain the code. Vendor type equals forms dot select help underscore text equals please select your vendor type. So that is gonna be it. Now let me explain. For vendor license, I didn't declare it below here as part of the widgets because I need to declare it as a file field. Now, like I said before, a file field will enable the user to click and upload any file from their system. Label equals vendor license. Label is like, an identifier for this field. So beside this vendor license field, we'll have this message vendor license. Let me go to my web browser. So this help text, this label, it's similar to this placeholder. But the difference is placeholder displays this text inside of the text box, while label would display this text outside of the text box. Maybe something like this. This is a label, but you can put it at the top, you can put it at the bottom, you can put it by the side. That is the difference between label and placeholder. Now, help text is like showing extended information about what that particular field is. If I come here, this could be a help text. I don't know what they use. It could be a normal text. It could be also a help text, but this is how a help text looks like. The text are longer and gives detailed information about what the field is. So for us, our help text is going to be just below each text box or each text field or each object, so that it will give you detailed information about what that particular field is meant for. That is it. So sometimes you can use only label, and sometimes you can use only help text. Your help text can also be short. For example, this long message I have here, I can declare it as a help text and short like this, and just place it below this checkbox or a text field or any object here. Now, so that is by the way. So yeah, so this is our form. Our form is now complete. So on our next lectures, we will create our urls.py. Then we'll also create our function that will connect our backend to our front end, validate everything that the user has imputed, and save into the database. Now, this vendor type, I said is forms.select because if I go to the model now, let me go to the model. Vendor type, I said models.char field, max length equals 100, choices equals vendor type. So in Python and Django, when you declare a field as a choices field, it becomes a drop-down menu. Choices equals vendor type. And where are my choices? These are the choices, vendor type. So on the combo box, you have individual or business. So individuals can register, businesses can also register. Now, one last thing, I'm using only vendor name, vendor type, and vendor license in my forms because these four fields are going to be automatic fields. Now, vendors log will generate it automatically, and vendors log is like a unique identifier. So, for example, if two vendors have the same name, maybe vendor one came and registered as ABC Hotel, ABC Hotel. Vendor 2 came and also registered as ABC Hotel. But their IDs can never be the same because when vendor 1 registered, his ID will be 1. And when vendor 2 register, their ID will be 2. Now this vendors log will write our code so that it will concatenate the vendor name and the vendor ID. So vendors log for vendor 1 will be ABC Hotel 1, while vendors log for the second vendor will be ABC Hotel 2 if they have the same name. So this is a unique identifier. So this is what we're going to do. We'll write the code that will generate the vendors log and save in this field. Now is approved by default is set as false. So immediately the vendor clicks on save, the vendor enters their details and click on saves, their approved status will be false until an admin review the saved information, be sure that the license information is correct and everything is in order before this will change to true. So this is also an automatic field. That's why we didn't declare it in our forms.py. Now, the next field is created at. This is also an automatic field because immediately the vendor um, fills the form and then saves the information. It will pick the current date and time of the vendor of the current date and time when the vendor registered and save the time in this field called created at. That's why we say auto now add equals to. Then modified at, whenever the vendor modifies their information, it will pick the current date and time. So when you're updating current date and time, you don't use auto now add. Rather, you use auto now equals true. So these are automatic fields, and we're going to, on the profile, the vendor will be able to modify their profile or their vendor information. That is why we added this modified at. So yeah, we pick just these three fields, and then these are automatic fields like I explained, and this we've already created the forms for user and for user profile. So while we're writing the code to capture these three fields from the vendor, we'll also display this user form and also this user profile form so that the vendor can create their login details and their impute their profile as well, like their first name, their surname, and all the rest. So yeah, this is all we have to do now. The code is very simple. Take your time and practice, and then if you have any issues or challenges, drop it on the comment section, and subscribe to my channel so that you will get a notification whenever I drop the next video. Thank you and see you again. Bye bye.